What if I told you that the most important meal in all of history wasn't really about food at all? That it wasn't simply a gathering of friends sharing bread and wine, but something far deeper, something eternal? Imagine a simple room, a table, 13 men, and a moment so full of mystery and love that it would change the course of eternity forever. One table, 13 men, a single night that changed eternity. That is the Last Supper. It is a scene we've all heard about. Maybe you've seen the famous paintings, the way Jesus sits with his disciples, the bread and the wine on the table, the quiet tension as he speaks words no one could forget. But beneath the surface of this meal lies a divine mystery, a story of love so profound it breaks through time and space to meet each of us today. This was no ordinary dinner. It was not about hunger or hospitality alone. It was a moment saturated with God's presence, a sacred encounter between heaven and earth, flesh and spirit, human and divine. Jesus, fully God and fully man, leaned in close to those he loved and revealed the heart of God, a heart that was willing to give everything, even himself, to bring us back into the family of God. At this table, Jesus did not just share bread and wine. He offered himself. He took the ordinary, broken bread, poured out wine, and made them into signs, symbols of a love that would be broken and spilled out for all of humanity. What if we paused and stepped into that room? What if we let the gravity of that moment pull us closer, inviting us into something more than just history, something intimate, something alive? What if the Last Supper is still happening in your heart today? Welcome to Biblescope, where we come to find light, truth, and purpose in Jesus. In this space called the Christ Focus, we reflect deeply on his life, his love, and his teachings that continue to transform hearts across centuries. Here, we don't just study the Bible as an ancient text. We encounter the living Word who calls us into relationship. In this video, we will journey together into the Last Supper, the meal, the moment, and the mystery that reveals God's incredible love and truth. Stay with us until the end. There's a surprise insight that might change the way you see Jesus and yourself forever. Picture the scene once more. Jerusalem, the city bustling with pilgrims preparing for Passover. The air thick with anticipation. The streets alive with whispered prayers and hurried footsteps. The disciples find a room prepared just for them, a place that Jesus had chosen carefully. The ordinary setting of a rented upper room becomes the stage for a divine drama. At the center sits Jesus, knowing fully what is about to unfold. He has come to the final chapter of his earthly mission. The weight of the world's sin presses down on his heart. But instead of fear or despair, his face shines with love and peace. Here, Jesus speaks words that will echo through eternity. This is my body, broken for you. This is my blood, poured out for many. Imagine hearing those words spoken directly to you. What does it mean that Jesus' body is broken? That his blood is poured out? It means that the God who formed the stars, who spoke the universe into being, came down and became vulnerable. That he chose to enter our brokenness, to take on the pain and darkness of the world, and to bear it all on his shoulders. His body was broken, not just physically but spiritually for you and me. And the cup he offers is not just wine. It is the blood of a new covenant, a promise of forgiveness, healing, and restoration. It is a love letter written in flesh and blood. And just as the bread and wine are ordinary, the invitation is for everyone. No matter where you come from, what you have done, or how broken you feel, Jesus invites you to his table. The Last Supper calls us beyond ritual, beyond routine. It invites us into relationship, into the heart of the one who loves us enough to give everything. As we explore this moment together, we will uncover how Jesus reveals God's love and truth in ways that are both deeply human and gloriously divine. How his compassion meets our weaknesses. How his power transforms our brokenness into new life. And through it all, we are drawn closer to him. Jesus, who is not distant history, but near, present, alive. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and come with me into this sacred story. Because this meal is more than just a meal. It is a doorway to encounter the living God. If you feel ready to step into this story with reverence and awe, I invite you to stay with us for the full reflection. You'll discover not only the meaning of the bread and the cup, but also a fresh invitation to follow Jesus more closely in your own life. Before we dive deeper, I want to remind you to like this video and subscribe to Biblescope. This channel exists to help you grow closer to Jesus, to help you find light in the darkness, truth in the confusion, and purpose in the journey. Together, let's reflect on the one who gave himself for us, the one who is still breaking bread with us today. Imagine Jerusalem at twilight, the city alive with the hum of countless voices, pilgrims arriving from near and far to celebrate Passover, the great feast of remembrance. Streets are bustling with anticipation. Families prepare their homes, lamps are lit, and ancient traditions breathe through every corner. The scent of roasted lamb and unleavened bread fills the air. Yet amid this vibrant chaos, a quiet moment awaits, an upper room prepared not by human hands alone, but by the hand of God. Jesus, fully aware of the weight of the hour before him, sends his closest friends, the 12 disciples, ahead to make ready a place. This was no last-minute arrangement. It was an act of divine planning and tender care. Go into the city, he instructs, and find a man carrying a jar of water. Follow him to the house he enters, and say to the owner, the teacher asks, "Where's the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?" Mark 14, verses 13 to 14. The obedience of the disciples echoes through this story. They find a room, prepare the meal, and set the table. Yet what they prepare is more than a meal. It is a sacred space, a stage for God's unfolding love story. This room, small and likely modest, becomes a sanctuary for the divine. It is a space where heaven touches earth. The walls, silent witnesses to the weight of history, hold more than echoes of conversation. They hold the presence of the Savior himself. Here, the fullness of Jesus' humanity and divinity meets in perfect harmony. The one who created the cosmos, who commands the winds and calms the seas, now sits quietly, sharing a meal like any man. Yet in this ordinary act, his divine nature shines through. The God who is eternal and unchanging steps into time, into space, into human vulnerability. Jesus is both the humble host and the eternal king. He knows what lies ahead, the betrayal, the suffering, the cross. Yet he does not shrink away. Instead, he embraces this moment with courage and love. This is the final evening before the darkness of Good Friday, yet his heart is full of light. Consider his tenderness in choosing this place, in preparing this night. It is not just a meal to satisfy hunger. It is a deliberate act of communion, God inviting us into his very life. The room reminds us of our own hearts. Is there room for Jesus? Have we prepared a place for him, away from the noise, the distractions, the demands of life? The upper room was ready for the coming of Jesus. But what about us? Have we made room in our hearts for this divine guest? In this simple upper room, the sacred and the ordinary meet. The breaking of bread is no longer just a meal. It becomes a symbol of Jesus' impending sacrifice, a foreshadowing of the body that will be broken for the healing of the world. The shared cup is no longer just wine. It is the blood of the new covenant, a promise sealed with divine love. As we picture this scene, let us step beyond the walls of that ancient room and see the invitation extended to us today. Jesus is still preparing a place, not just a physical location, but a space within our souls. He waits patiently for us to say yes, to make room for him amid our busy lives, our doubts, our fears. This is the profound beauty of the Last Supper. It calls us to intimacy, to vulnerability, to surrender. A room prepared in love is a room where healing begins, where brokenness is met with grace, where humanity touches divinity and eternity presses into the present. So, As we imagine that upper room in Jerusalem, let us ask ourselves, have we made room for Jesus? Is there a quiet place in your heart where he can come and stay? Because the story of the Last Supper is not just a moment frozen in time. It is a living invitation to communion with the one who loves us beyond measure. As we move deeper into the Last Supper, our eyes rest on the bread, simple, humble, yet bursting with meaning. To fully grasp its significance, we must first step back and understand the ancient tradition that framed this meal, the Passover. For centuries, the Jewish people had celebrated Passover as a sacred remembrance of God's mighty deliverance. It was a festival that marked the night when God, in his infinite mercy, freed his people from the crushing chains of slavery in Egypt. The blood of a spotless lamb, placed on doorposts, shielded their homes from the angel of death. The unleavened bread, eaten in haste, reminded them of the urgency of their flight to freedom. No time for bread to rise, no time for delay. Passover was a feast filled with symbols: the lamb's blood for protection, the bitter herbs for the bitterness of slavery, and the unleavened bread for the purity and readiness of God's people. Each element told a story of God's faithfulness, justice, and mercy. Into this sacred moment steps Jesus, the Lamb of God, who redefines the very heart of Passover. As he takes the bread in his hands, the room falls into a profound silence. Then, with words that echo through the ages, he declares, "This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." 1 Corinthians 11, verse 24. Those words were revolutionary. This was not just bread anymore. It was his body, the very body that had taken on human flesh, that had walked among the poor and the broken, that had healed the sick and embraced the outcast. The body that would soon be broken on the cross, bearing the weight of humanity's sin and sorrow. Think about that for a moment. Jesus didn't just speak about love from a distance. He didn't offer teachings detached from his own life. No, he became the living embodiment of God's love. He stepped into our pain and vulnerability and chose to be broken for our healing. Here, the incarnation, the mystery of God becoming man, shines with piercing clarity. The God who formed the stars wrapped himself in flesh, walked our dusty roads, hungered and thirsted, experienced sorrow and joy. He became fully human so that he could fully save. And yet, in that very humanity, he was also fully divine, the Son of God who willingly offered his body to be broken, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a willing sacrifice. The breaking of bread is more than ritual. It is a sacred act that reveals the heart of God's redemptive plan. It shows us that healing comes through brokenness, that love is often costly, that the path to restoration passes through surrender. What does it mean to receive this broken bread today? To partake of Jesus' body, given and broken for us? It means entering into a mystery of grace. It means recognizing that our own brokenness is not a barrier to God's love, but a doorway to it. It means embracing the one who meets us in our weakness and transforms us with his strength. When we take the bread, we are not simply remembering a past event. We are joining a living story. We are inviting Jesus to break himself open within us, to heal our wounds, to nourish our souls, to make us whole. In the quiet moments of communion, when the bread touches our lips, we are reminded that we are deeply known and deeply loved, that the God of the universe chose to become bread broken for us, so that we might never be alone in our suffering. So as we continue this journey through the Last Supper, let us receive the bread with open hearts, ready to be healed, ready to be made new. Because in the broken bread, we find the fullness of God's love, unfailing, tender, and life-giving. As the night deepens and the meal progresses, Jesus reaches for the cup, the simple vessel filled with wine, a drink familiar and symbolic to his disciples. Yet in his hands, this cup becomes something far more than just wine. It becomes the sacred sign of a new covenant, a divine promise written not on tablets of stone, but on the very hearts of those who believe. To understand this moment, we need to look back to the Old Covenant, the sacred agreement between God and his people Israel. That covenant was built on laws and sacrifices, a system established by God through Moses, meant to guide his people in holiness and communion with him. Animal sacrifices were made regularly as a way to atone for sin, to symbolically cleanse the people and restore their relationship with God. But these sacrifices, though commanded by God, were never meant to be the final answer. They were a foreshadowing, a preparation for something greater yet to come. Into this ancient ritual, Jesus introduces a new reality. With a solemn voice, he takes the cup and declares, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Matthew 26, verse 28. In these words, Jesus reveals the divine mystery at the heart of the gospel. God is making a new covenant with his people, a covenant not of law, but of love and grace. A covenant sealed by his own blood, poured out willingly to cleanse us from sin and restore us to himself. This cup is the symbol of God's radical love, a love so vast that it chose to enter the brokenness of humanity, to bear the weight of our sin, and to offer redemption freely. Imagine the power of those words for the disciples that night. They had grown up with the Old Testament sacrifices, the laws that defined their relationship with God. And now, Jesus tells them that the blood of animals will no longer suffice. The perfect Lamb, the Son of God himself, is about to become the ultimate sacrifice. His blood cleanses, redeems, and seals our adoption into God's family. When we drink from this cup, we participate in that new covenant. We receive forgiveness that is complete and eternal. We are reminded that nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. Not our mistakes, not our failures, not even death itself. The cup invites us into intimate closeness with Jesus. It is an invitation to trust in the grace he offers, to accept the forgiveness that flows from his sacrifice, and to live as children of God, clothed in his righteousness. But here comes the personal question. Have you accepted this cup of grace? Have you allowed Jesus to pour out his love into the deepest parts of your life? This cup is not just a symbol on a table. It is a call to a living, breathing relationship, to a daily surrender where we drink deeply from his mercy and let it shape us. As we reflect on the cup, we are drawn into awe at the mystery of God's covenantal love. We see that Jesus, in offering this cup, is not only fulfilling ancient prophecy, but inviting us into the ongoing story of redemption. The blood of the new covenant is not a distant memory. It is the present reality for every believer. So when you think of the cup, remember that you are called not only to remember Jesus' sacrifice, but to embrace it fully, to receive his grace and walk in the freedom it brings. This is the heart of the gospel, a God who loved us enough to shed his blood for us, who offers us cleansing and new life through that sacrifice. As you contemplate the cup tonight, ask yourself, how close am I to Jesus? Have I truly accepted the fullness of the grace poured out for me? The invitation stands. Come to the cup, receive the blood of the new covenant, and be made whole. The atmosphere in the upper room was heavy, thick with a mixture of intimacy, anticipation, and an almost unbearable tension. Jesus, fully aware of what was about to unfold, sat with his closest friends, the 12 disciples. Yet among them sat one who would soon shatter that circle of trust, Judas Iscariot. Imagine the weight of that knowledge on Jesus' heart. The one who knew the secrets of every soul, who read hearts like open books, now faces betrayal not from a stranger, but from a beloved disciple. The shadow of this betrayal hangs over the meal, unseen by the others, but piercingly clear to Jesus. And yet, in this moment of impending rejection, Jesus does not recoil in anger or despair. Instead, his response is astonishing, an act of humility and love that still echoes through history. Before the meal, Jesus rose from the table, took a basin of water, and began washing the disciples' feet. Feet that had walked dusty roads. Feet that would soon walk the path to the cross. And yes, feet belonging even to Judas, the one who would betray him. This was not a mere gesture of hospitality. It was a profound lesson in love, service, and grace. Here is Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah, stooping low to serve those who would soon abandon him. Even Judas was not outside this love. Even in the shadow of betrayal, Jesus offers compassion. What does this teach us about the nature of God's love? It is relentless. It does not turn away when we fail. It pursues us even when we reject it. Jesus' actions reveal a love that is both tender and courageous. A love that chooses to serve even when faced with pain. A love that offers forgiveness before the wounds are even inflicted. As Jesus confronts the reality of betrayal, he also reveals something deeper about the human heart and about our own struggles. How often do we find ourselves wrestling with weakness? How often do we experience moments of failure, doubt, or even betrayal of others or ourselves? The shadow of betrayal is not just Judas' story. It is ours too. Moments when we fall short, when we disappoint those we love, or when we feel abandoned. And yet, Jesus invites us to bring these broken parts to him, to acknowledge our weakness without fear, to receive his love that covers even the darkest moments. The question then becomes deeply personal. How do we respond when we see our own weakness or betrayal? Do we hide in shame? Do we shut the door on grace? Or do we allow Jesus' love, like the water in the basin, to wash over us, cleansing, healing, restoring? The betrayal at the Last Supper is not just a tragic plot twist in a story from long ago. It is a mirror reflecting our own journeys. Jesus meets us in our darkest moments with the same compassion he showed Judas. He does not condemn. He calls us to repent, to be made new. And this is the profound mystery of divine love. It shines brightest in the shadows. It holds us even when we falter. So as we reflect on this scene, let us be honest with ourselves. Where do we need Jesus' grace in our lives? Where have we felt betrayed or have betrayed others? And how might we, like Jesus, choose love even when it's hardest, even when the shadows press in? The upper room was a place of many emotions: joy, sorrow, hope, and heartbreak. But above all, it was a place where love refused to be extinguished. Jesus, even knowing the pain ahead, chooses love. And that love invites us to do the same. As the evening in the upper room nears its close, Jesus speaks words that carry both mystery and hope. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day, when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Matthew 26, verse 29. In this simple yet profound statement lies a glimpse of an eternal promise. A promise that the Last Supper was not a conclusion, but a gateway to a future celebration beyond all imagining. Jesus is pointing his disciples, and us, to the eschatological hope, the great and glorious consummation of God's kingdom. The day when heaven and earth will unite in perfect harmony, when sin, sorrow, and death will be no more, and when the faithful will gather around the ultimate table, the wedding supper of the Lamb. This feast is described vividly in the book of Revelation, where the Lamb, Jesus himself, is both host and bridegroom. It is a celebration of victory, redemption, and unending joy, a feast where every tear is wiped away and where God dwells with his people forever. The promise of this feast is a light shining through the ages, a beacon of hope that carries us through life's darkest valleys. It reminds us that our journey as followers of Christ is not only about looking back to a sacred meal shared centuries ago, but also about looking forward with eager anticipation. We are invited to live in readiness, to prepare our hearts and lives for the day when we will share that eternal meal with Jesus face to face. This promise invites us into a profound relationship with Jesus, one marked by trust, hope, and active participation. We are not passive spectators, but invited guests called to live as citizens of his kingdom here and now. The Last Supper was a moment of remembrance, but it was also a call to hope, a hope that transcends the brokenness of this world and points toward an unshakable future. It tells us that Jesus' love story with humanity is far from over. The cross, the resurrection, the ascension, they are chapters in a divine narrative that continues to unfold. The feast yet to come is the climax of this story, the moment when love will be fully revealed and we will experience the fullness of God's presence. So what does this promise mean for us today? It means that every time we partake in communion, we're not only recalling Jesus' sacrifice, but renewing our commitment to live as people of hope, waiting for his return. It means that our lives carry eternal significance, that in our joys and trials, in our faithfulness and struggles, we are moving toward that heavenly banquet. And it means that the love Jesus showed at the Last Supper, the love that led him to broken bread and poured out blood, is a love that will one day be made complete in us. The Last Supper wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the greatest love story ever told. A story that invites us to draw near, to trust deeply, and to live in the light of his promises. As we close this chapter of reflection, let us carry with us the hope of the feast yet to come, the assurance of Jesus' abiding presence, and the call to prepare our hearts for that glorious day. Because this sacred meal points us not only to the past, but to the future, where we will gather once again with Jesus at the table of eternal love. As we come to the close of this journey through the Last Supper, one truth rises like a beacon through the ages. Jesus didn't simply share a meal with his disciples that night. No, he offered himself as the meal. The bread broken, the cup poured out. These were not mere symbols, but the very essence of his love made tangible. In that upper room, Jesus revealed the depths of God's heart, a love so vast, so intimate, so sacrificial that it invites us into a personal encounter with him. The Last Supper is far more than a historical event to be remembered on a calendar. It is a living, breathing invitation, a call to step beyond the role of observer and become a participant in the eternal story of grace. When Jesus said, "Take, eat, this is my body, and drink from it, all of you, this is my blood of the covenant," he was opening his very self to us, offering to nourish our souls and bind us forever to his divine life. This meal unveils the profound truth of who Jesus is, fully God and fully man, the one who understands our humanity, our hunger, our weakness, our need for healing, and yet chooses to give himself completely for us. In the bread, we see his body broken for our healing. In the cup, his blood poured out for our redemption. His actions echo through time, inviting us into relationship, into communion not only with him, but with each other as his beloved family. So now I want to ask you, what table are you sitting at today? Are you merely watching from a distance, admiring Jesus from afar, but hesitant to draw near? Or are you partaking of him, allowing his love to break you open, to fill you, to transform you from the inside out? This is no ordinary meal. It is an encounter with the living God who loves you with an everlasting love. Perhaps you feel unworthy, broken, or distant. Maybe you carry wounds, doubts, or burdens that feel too heavy to bring to the table. Yet Jesus invites you. Come as you are. There is room for you at his table. He waits to meet you there, to wash your feet, to break bread with you, and to fill you with his peace. And here's the beautiful mystery. Every time we approach this sacred meal, we are not only remembering what Jesus did long ago, we are stepping into the ongoing story of redemption, a story that includes you and me, right here, right now. If Jesus sat at your table tonight, what would you say to him? Would you share your joys, your fears, your hopes and regrets? Would you ask for forgiveness, for strength, for deeper love? I encourage you to reflect on this question, and if you feel moved, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's create a community of hearts drawn closer to Christ, learning from each other's journeys and encouraging one another in faith. Jesus' life changes everything, and today's reflection reveals his love, his truth, and his power. How will you follow him more closely this week? Will you accept his invitation to come to the table, to receive his grace anew, and to live in the light of his promises? If this video has drawn you closer to Christ, please like it and subscribe to Biblescope. Together, let's keep our hearts focused on Him, exploring the depth of God's Word, discovering His legacy of saints, and growing in intimacy with Jesus. Remember, the Last Supper was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of the greatest love story ever told. A story that invites you in, calls you near, and promises that in Jesus, you will always find light, truth, and purpose. Thank you for joining us at Biblescope. May your heart be filled with awe, your soul refreshed by His presence, and your life forever changed by His love.